mindfulness practice. As you've just heard, the meeting's being recorded, and since many of you are probably doing these practices with a mindfulness-informed perspective, or this psychotherapy, or having mindfulness as a practice supporting your work, that will be one of our themes as we explore this. So what we're going to do is you're going to hear from a few members of the board of directors of the Institute of Meditation and Psychotherapy to share some of our ideas, and then we'll discuss them together in different formats. But to start, we'd like to start with a little exercise to get a sense of your feelings and what your experience has been. And Caitlin, if you would put the Mentimeter screen up. Okay, for those of you who are not familiar with Mentimeter, if you open the chat box, so when the screen is up, you have to click on chat. Caitlin will put in the chat box now a message to everybody, which is basically www.menti.com. And what I'm going to ask everybody to do is go to menti.com and there type in our code, which is going to be 891387.7. You don't have to memorize that. Caitlin has put it in the chat box, and you can also see it right there on your screen. And you're going to be asked to give 3 words for what are you struggling with right now in psychotherapy, pandemic related or not pandemic related. And we will see, we'll get a sense of what the community is feeling as you do this. So please go to menti.com right now. Type in the code 891387.7 and share your experience with this.
So how do we do that? How do we go to the internet through this medium?
Oh, go open the chat box.
Yeah.
And is it not live? Let's see. You may have to copy the URL down, or just put in the URL, menti.com.
You can also go on a phone or
do it on a phone. Thank you.
Hey, Ron, also, I think we want to just mention that this event is being streamed live on Facebook right now, just so folks know.
Thank you.
I don't see how to do this.
Go on a phone or on...
I'm on a phone. I'm already on a phone.
Okay, then you'll need to open another tab. If you don't know how to do it, don't worry about it. It'll be okay. Just watch the watch it appear. First thing we get to be conscious of is mindfulness of technology frustrations during the pandemic. Thank you, everybody who is able to do it. We're really seeing our collective experience showing up here. Looks like so far the lead experiences are fatigue, exhaustion, overwhelm. But with many others. And you can see as this flower continues to evolve that we're very much in this together. There's many experiences that are showing up big and bold because they're affecting so many of us. And as this is unfolding, a couple of other words about our structure today. If you could leave yourself muted unless you're talking, that's great. We will mute you if you forget and some noise starts coming there. And I'm going to invite everybody to please turn your video on so that we can have a sense of community. Now, if something inappropriate is going on in the background, feel free to leave it off. But if it's legal to do so, consider turning your video on so that we can get a sense of being in community with one another. Since clearly one of the greatest hits that's coming up here is isolation, and one of our intents is to try to come together as a group. So let's see, do we, I can't quite see from our list. Has Chris Willard joined us? Do we have an answer to that, or is Paul going to be doing our?
Paul is going to do that practice.
Excellent. Okay, so why don't we begin now with a little bit of a sit for those of us who are just joining. Some people were here for a sit prior, but those who are just joining, just to arrive for a few minutes before we begin discussing some of the issues that are showing up on the Mentimeter. And I give to you Paul Fulton, past president of the Institute for Meditation and Psychotherapy.
Maybe turn off the Mentimeter, the shared screen, so we can sit together. Thanks. Yeah, we're going to sit very briefly. And so again, just where you are, no special posture, making yourselves comfortable. And in the spirit that this is, of course, the only moment we can be alive, maybe for just 5 minutes, we resolve to be as attentive as we can be to every passing moment of our lives, because this moment is our lives. So I'll ring once to begin and once to end. And with one suggestion, and that is only to see if it's possible to allow everything to be exactly as it is, without interference, but with uncommonly close attention. And life is like this. Thank you all.
Thank you, Paul. This group has amazing powers of concentration. We materialized several other participants through the practice. And now we're going to move on to hear from a couple of members of the board with their reflections on some of the challenges and the benefits of practicing psychotherapy and in the context of having a mindfulness practice during the pandemic. So first, Ina Kazan, who's the current president of the board of IMP, please.
All right. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's a real pleasure to have that sense of community with everybody, even if it is over Zoom. As I was watching the Mentimeter, I found myself, kind of connecting and empathizing with a lot of what most of you were putting on there. And I imagine that's a very common experience for us as therapists, empathizing with our clients, feeling some of what our clients are experiencing, sometimes connecting around similar issues that they're facing, similar to what we have faced as well. And those more personal connections can be hard because they can be triggering for us, and it'd be more difficult for us to keep our own stuff out of the therapy room. And until the pandemic, these kinds of empathetic triggers weren't very frequent, at least in my experience and that of my students. But in the past year, so many of our challenges have become shared challenges. So much of what our clients have been struggling with is also the stuff we are struggling with. We've worried about the effects of the virus. We've suffered from isolation. We have missed our friends. We've worried about our more vulnerable family members. And if that wasn't enough, in addition to the fears of the virus, we saw a fight for racial justice, a financial crisis, an intense and divisive political election and insurrection. And we've gone through all of that together with our clients. So as the pandemic enters its second year, many people are tired, traumatized, angry, afraid. And we, the therapists, are those people too. So how do we care for people who are talking about the same stressors that are affecting us, stressing us out, worrying us? Raise your hand if you found yourself hearing, your client talk about something that they're worried about, and then, a thought arising in your mind, oh, I haven't thought about it that way. Yeah, now I'm worried too. Or just, simply really connecting with something that your client is talking about and feeling that those same strong feelings. It sounds like a lot of us have had that experience. I've certainly found my mind trying to run off, into worries, during therapy sessions, worries about my kids and, their own remote schooling, as many of my clients, kids are going through remote schooling, worries about my mother, who's about the same age as many of my clients' parents, worries about my friends, who are gay, transgender, people of color, similar to my clients. Of course, this isn't new. But, this is all happening a lot more than it had in the past. And it takes a lot of emotional energy to disengage from my own stuff and then to refocus on the client. And to top it all, this is happening over Zoom. right? And then, Zoom, which requires, so much more energy to stay present, regardless of the topic of conversation. Zoom, which, dries out my eyes and make my shoulders feel like rocks. And, Zoom, which sometimes loses connection and I have to reboot Wi-Fi or reboot my computer, or just bang my head against the wall, and attempt to maybe, get back in there. So I've certainly found myself having a lot more difficult time also separating from what happens in therapy and the rest of my life. And watching the horror of the murder of George Floyd and hearing about the attacks against Asian Americans, other racial injustices, so many of them happening in the last year, I found myself thinking about my clients who are people of color and wanting to check on them, wanting to know how they're coping right now. A session might be a few days away. I want to know how they're doing right now. It's been hard to keep that out of the rest of my life. Or as vaccines started coming out, and my clients were talking about not being able to get a spot for their own vaccine. As I'm, searching for an appointment for my mom, right? I also find myself being really tempted, like, well, I know this person is looking for a time. Maybe I can let them know, or maybe I can, schedule a time for them. It's been much harder to find that boundary, and the boundary between therapy and the rest of my life has become a lot more elusive, and it's taken a lot more energy to maintain it. Generally, I think, like many of you, I've been feeling a lot more drained, needing more time to recover and take care of myself, and also having a lot less time available for all of that. Of course, there is a significant silver lining too. I find myself more connected with my clients. I've spent a lot more quality time with my family. I've learned a lot of new board games. And I've also looked within myself in ways that I haven't in the past. But I will leave it to Charles to talk about the upside of the pandemic. So I will stop here, and thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Ina. So next up, we're going to have Charles Styron, who for a remarkably long time has served as the faithful treasurer to the Institute for Meditation and Psychotherapy. So Charles, if you'd share some of your thoughts, please.
Good morning. This presentation is entitled Discoveries and Opportunities Resulting from the Pandemic. I'll speak quite personally and briskly, trusting that your own analogous experiences will resonate with mine. Arena 1. My wife and I have been on a one-year in-house retreat. We're both clinical psychologists and have been spending endless hours on Zoom. Discovery. Being on Zoom much of the day is taxing, but it's far better than I anticipated. Most of my patients also want to continue this way because it saves them so much time. Who can blame them? We're actually doing fine. Virtual psychotherapy is here to stay, in other words. Arena 2. Before the pandemic, I did 2 to 3 neuropsychological testing assessments a week. They comprised about half of my professional time and more than half of my income. Big deal. Constant scheduling and timely write-ups were always hanging over my head, however. Testing must also be done face-to-face to be efficient. So I curtailed it entirely during the pandemic. Discovery 1, I haven't missed it one bit. Opportunity. I've been able to replace the income manyfold with less effort by trading options in the stock market. Discovery 2, trading options is very risky business and has a steep, expensive learning curve. Discovery 3, making money in the market provides security, but it has little intrinsic social value. In spite of the money and excitement, which are far from nothing, it's a spiritually empty pursuit. I understand this better now than I did before and temper my activity accordingly. Arena 3. During the pandemic, I've had more time on my hands than normal. This past year, therefore, has been a small window into retirement. Discovery 1, I ain't ready to retire. I haven't done the necessary homework yet. Discovery 2. If I want to have a fruitful retirement, I better get my ass in gear. Opportunity. I actually have time to do this. Discovery 3. I'm a lot less organized, disciplined, and self-directed than I thought. Arena 4. Being able to work at home and participate in the information economy is a blessing. I'm lucky to have the training and the smarts to do it. But I didn't earn these advantages. I accept some credit for employing them successfully, but I didn't earn them. They came to me largely by chance. Discovery, or should I say rediscovery. Many, many others do not have these advantages, and many of them have suffered during the pandemic. It isn't their fault. Furthermore, I depend on many more of these people than I can count. To paraphrase John Donne, I'm not an island entire to itself. I'm a piece of the continent, a part of the main. Opportunity. I'd best remember this simple dictum of interdependence and conduct myself accordingly. Final arena. I've practiced some meditation during the pandemic, but not as much as I thought I would. Instead, I've come to regard each of my activities as practice. Everything is novel, but then again, everything is also familiar. It's what Trungpa Rinpoche used to call new old hat. Final discovery. Many things of value that I knew before in some fashion and forgot. Or as Charles Olson said, I've had to learn the simplest things last, which made for difficulties. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. We're already getting requests for a transcript of your talk if it's written out. I don't know if we can find a way to provide that to folks, but we'll look into doing that. So now we're going to go into breakout rooms so that we can talk with one another. The rooms will be for a little bit less than 15 minutes, and Caitlin, who is doing a wonderful job. I tried to stop her from applying to clinical psychology graduate school because she's been so competent at helping us out with these and other matters, but unfortunately she's going to go and become a psychologist. But before she does that, she's going to help us to organize the breakout room. So you will get an invitation now to go into a breakout room, and we'll all have a chance to talk together about these themes, about what has been challenging and perhaps what silver linings we found in the pandemic, whether reactions to what Ina and Charles said or just your own experiences. And you just click join, those of you who, if anybody's not super familiar with this at this point, when the invitation comes. Caitlin, do we have everybody's email address from their registrations?
We do. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we will, and Charles, are you comfortable sharing a copy of your talk?
Yes, I'll email it to wherever.
Yeah, send it to Caitlin, and Caitlin can send it to everybody.
Okay.
That'd be wonderful, because we have quite a few requests for that.
Fine.
So welcome back, everybody. We'll take just a moment for everybody to arrive from the breakout rooms. And we will email you. Charles will share his talk, and we will find a way to email that to everybody. And now we're going to hear a couple of other reflections from other members of the board. We're going to begin with Dave. Are you?
I'm here.
Excellent. With Dave Shannon, who's who's been a very active member of our board lately, and I'll let Dave take it away.
Good morning, everybody. So much has been said already about how difficult and trying this past year has been. And as we all know, and as we all feel, our bodies have been put through the ringer too. Our feeling bodies have been holding and carrying and expressing this year in all its sorrows and joys. And so in that spirit, I want to invite all of our bodies and your body into this conversation. Our feeling bodies need attention too. So I'm going to ask you to take a moment to direct your attention to your body and to orient to the screen in front of you. But if you're in a place this morning for whatever reason that focusing on your body is not in your best interest, of course, that's okay. Just do what you need to do for the next few minutes. So now notice, where is your body in relation to the screen? How close are you? Are you sitting, standing? Maybe you're laying down. How are you sitting, standing, or laying down? Check in with your neck, your shoulders, your back. Notice your eyes, your facial muscles, your jaw. Just notice. So come back for a moment, and we're going to return to our bodies in a minute. But first, I just want to explicitly acknowledge our nervous systems, especially after our small group conversation. I noticed mine become a little bit elevated in our conversation. It was a wonderful conversation, and my nervous system became a little bit more aroused as well. So for all of us with all of our intersecting identities, this last year, this historic moment has been happening over and over and over. Our bodies remember, and our bodies are recording and expressing the collective traumas. The pandemic, racial violence and oppression, the larger political climate. And this, of course, as we all know, is layered on top of our past hurts and traumas and our joys. And current traumas and hurts and joys have continued to unfold. And for us, another layer has been our work. We've bravely, albeit maybe somewhat reluctantly, entered the bold and wonderful world of teletherapy. How has your nervous system been? What's been happening in your brain and the rest of your body? How has it changed as time has moved along? Our feeling bodies need attention. And so in our last minute or so, I want to return to our bodies again. So close your eyes if you're comfortable doing that. Take a deep breath or two. What's happening right now? Check in again with the sensations in your body. What are your neck and shoulders telling you? What is your back saying? What are your eyes feeling? In this moment, give your body, give yourself a new experience. How does your body want to move? Ask your body, how do you want to move? Maybe your body wants to look away from the screen for a few seconds and then look back again. Maybe your body wants to stretch or soften. Ask your body, really, ask your body what it wants to do, and then do it. So coming back, reorienting to the room you're in and to the screen in front of you. I encourage all of us to continue to give our feeling bodies the attention they need. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Dave. It's certainly true that it's probably not optimal for most of our bodies to be sitting in front of Zoom screens all day long, taking in all sorts of emotional challenges. So thank you. So next we're going to hear from another member of our board, Laura Warren.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Dave. It's so easy to overlook our bodies. So I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of self-care, some of my practices I've been working with. And I just want to first acknowledge, because part of my growth this past year has been trying to mindfully pause before I speak. And so I just want to acknowledge the conditioning and privilege that I have as a white woman and as a physician, and that this conditioning shapes my perspective. And in anything I share, I invite you to discard anything that is not useful or unintentionally may create harm. So this year, I like to joke that we have been gifted a smorgasbord of unpleasant experiences, different types and shades. Who knew there was such an array, from the bigger losses of loved ones, loss of job, injustice that's horrific, and then smaller unpleasant experiences, technical difficulties, wearing a mask and having that little itching feeling, but not adjusting it quite right, or having fogged glasses, changes in our routines. And it feels like this year has been a rich, quote, air quotes, chance to practice working with unpleasant, to really, I'm reminded of the phrase, it's already here, so we might as well welcome it. So that's been part of what I've been trying to do personally. It's not been easy, and it's so helpful to have community like this to really share in that challenge. I've also really turned to people whose wisdom inspire me as a source of comfort. And Tara Brach uses the word trance, and she talks about the trance of unworthiness. She also talks about trance in general in terms of survival. And I like that because it brings a certain kindness to our autopilot and to the survival mechanisms that have just been activated more in this past year. And I've been working a lot with just noticing when I'm in a trance. Dave, when you were leading us, I was noticing my body was just kind of in this stiff trance, and even just helping the body soften it takes really work. And so I like the word trance. And there are 3 questions from the Mindful Self-Compassion Framework from Kristen Neff and Chris Germer that colleagues shared that really have resonated. And I share it with clients and try to work myself with these 3. The first is, what am I feeling? And for me, a lot of times, even that can be hard. Sometimes it's like, I don't know what I'm feeling, or maybe I can identify some numbness or some element of trance in the lack of time and the busyness that, or between clients. And then the second question is, can I bring kindness to that? And I really like this question because it can be really hard to bring kindness when we catch ourselves in autopilot, to say, yeah, of course we're in autopilot. Of course, this is a normal response to the situation we've all been through. And then the third question is, what do I need right now? And I find that even if I don't have answers or good answers to these questions, just asking them helps bring some kindness to the experience that I'm going through. And another mindful self-compassion question that I also like to play with is, how do I care for myself already? Because it has a really nice, gentle, there's usually an answer I can say, well, I went to bed early because I was exhausted, but I was trying to get some sleep, the basics, breathing, taking bio breaks between meetings, just the very small things as a way of kind of resetting the frame to acknowledging the effort and the intention of trying to care for oneself in this time. I also have been doing a lot of trying to begin again in noticing. So actually, I'll invite you for just a moment to take a moment to disengage with the screen and just to visually take in your surroundings. So looking up, noticing color, texture, perhaps light. What parts of light do you find in the room? Looking down, gazing at the floor. If there's a window, taking a look outside. And really seeing if it's possible to see these surroundings with fresh eyes, really with a beginner's mind. If you're like me, you're sitting in a room you've spent hours in on Zoom. And then this is inspired by this practice by Richa Gawande, and then inviting you to look over each shoulder, which is inspired by Resma Menakem. So as a way of connecting with the back body, so really taking in what is behind you, looking over the left shoulder, looking over the right shoulder, seeing if it's possible to bring even wonder, connecting with the back body, seeing what it's like just to rest. And then noticing the choice that you have to decide what's most supportive in this moment as you maintain some connection with the body and bring the eyes back to the screen, seeing if it's possible to stay connected with the body at the same time. And I want to close with sharing another thing I've been wondering a lot about, which in the midst of self-care being so challenged and challenging, I think for especially all of us who are in some ways the holders of the space, and there's just a lot of space to be held. And I wonder a lot about the next number of months and the next year for those of us who are therapists, because there's sort of an unending need. And so I want to share another person who's been inspiring to me that gets to this question of how do we interact with others? It's such a fraught topic as we're all juggling coexisting realities. And Valerie Kaur is a Sikh activist, a filmmaker, a mother, an author, a civil rights lawyer. I had the privilege of meeting her about 15 years ago when she was in divinity school here in the Boston area. And she has a wonderful quote that's stuck with me. You know, this question of how do we be in the presence of others' suffering, even as it's different from our own and we're struggling with our own. And she talks a lot about wonder. And I would say that's an act of mindful compassion, really bringing friendly curiosity to others. She has this great quote, "You are a part of me I do not yet know." And just the idea of bringing wonder to our interactions with others as part of understanding and connecting with our common humanity. She has a book called See No Stranger that I've found really inspiring, and really it paints a vision of the possibility of healing in a time of othering that, at least for me, is helpful because the world really feels like it's in a painful transition. So I will stop there and just express gratitude for everyone's time today. I know it's extra Zoom time, and yeah, just gratitude to be able to connect in this way after such a year. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Laura. So now what we want to do was open this to our wider community and to hear from you and have a chance to do some combination of three things. One is mention a challenge that you've been working with, mention perhaps a self-care strategy or an other care strategy that you found particularly helpful yourself, or should you have questions or comments on any of the things that we as board members have shared, please feel free to mention those as well. And the way we'll structure this is probably you're all familiar with this, but please open the participants window. There's a little picture of two people at the bottom of your screen called participants. And in the participants window, there's the option to raise your hand. And when you do that, a little blue hand will show up. And I'm going to moderate just in terms of calling on people and inviting you to speak. So anybody who has any reflection on challenges, things you found helpful, or just associations to what we've been talking about, please feel free to raise your hand. And just to get this started, it is an act of generosity to share with the community what is on your mind, because one of the things we're trying to do here is have us enforce our sense of common humanity here in going through this as therapists who are meditators together. So Martha Barry, it shows up as, if you would unmute yourself and share your thoughts. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I wanted to share a practice that this summer I was certified in Yoga Nidra. I don't know, it came up, I think, out of the pandemic, actually. And I took this class with some people in the Bay Area. And it's a practice where you get to lay down. And I'm telling you, at the end of my day with clients in Zoom, I just so look forward to laying down and doing this beautiful practice. So I just wanted to share that. Yoga Nidra, Nidra.
Would you like to share the particular aspect of Yoga Nidra practice? The instructions for the laying down and...
Oh, I could, yes. One of the things, it's about letting ourselves go through all the different brain rates of brain waves. So starting in the most active and then finally letting go to the corpse pose. And so what you do is you lay down, you put a wonderful cloth over your eyes to make it dark. You make sure you have a blanket to wrap in and be warm because your temperature is going to drop. And you just adjust the body a little bit at the beginning and you just let go. And you can listen to, there are many people that talk you through a Yoga Nidra practice. You can develop your own way of doing it as well, but it's usually guided. So.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Karen Beadle? Karen, just unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah, hi there. I just wanted to thank you all for the chat rooms, for the breakout rooms, because it's been really important just to hear other people's experiences and have a chance to share. I think that's one of the things that's most difficult being a psychotherapist during the pandemic, is just the level of listening that we're doing to all of our clients, and that desire just to be able to share our own experience from the perspective that we have. And I just also wanted to share that I turned very deeply toward my meditation practice during the pandemic. I sat 4 online retreats and maybe 5 online retreats. And it was really powerful to do self-retreats at home and to make my home feel like a meditation center. And I feel like when I come out of my office with all my telehealth Zoom energy and I walk back into the house, I still feel some of the resonance of creating a meditation hall in my own home. So I was deeply moved by how much practice could be nourished even online with, loving and really powerful teachers. So I just wanted to put that out there as one of the deep sustaining things for me.
Yeah, I did. Personally, I just want to second that. I had a chance with Bill and Susan Morgan, who some of you know to do, we did Bayecitos, which is a retreat center in New Mexico. We did a virtual Bayecitos retreat. Chris Germer was part of it too last summer. And I was amazed at how doing a retreat at home actually worked. And exactly what you're talking about, that the same way when I go to a retreat center that's familiar to me, let's say Barre, Massachusetts, for those of you who know this area, I immediately start kind of dropping into being more present, just being in that environment. Doing a retreat at home makes your home environment a cue for a mindful attitude, as you're saying. It's very powerful. So thank you very much for sharing that. Susan Mitchell?
On that note, I have joined a group with Bill and Susan Morgan after the IMP course with people from the IMP course. And that's been really sustaining. And also the group started by my friend who's here, Annette Telgarski, which is a local group of therapists who practice together once a month and talk. We do case consultation. And I think it's so, I can't say enough. It's been really helpful to have those supportive groups. Just one day stands out in particular when I just really felt like I was at the end of my rope. And another group member came in and said, well, I'm as miserable as the rest of you. And I just felt like, oh, we're all in this together, and it just was very uplifting to have that feeling. She's nodding because she knows what I'm talking about. I think that community's been very helpful, centered around practice. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd also like to encourage, if there are any other board members in particular who would like to comment on anything that any of the other wider community are saying, please feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand to do so, and we'll do that. So thank you. So Georgia Jones.
Hi, everybody. I second what Karen and Ron have been saying about doing the virtual retreats. Those have been a really amazing opportunity this year that I don't think would have come about in any other way. And I also have really noticed that even though I've been a part of a particular meditation community for over 10 years now, doing virtual retreats allows you to see people face to face instead of just seeing the backs of their heads. And if you have the time and energy, you do more with that community. And I have felt so much more connected to these folks that I already feel a deep connection with, but actually never speak to, even in the past 10 years. I've felt so much more of a connection with that community and others, like the IMP community, which I've been so sad that it's based in Boston. I've been far away from Boston for all these years. And that larger, more global connection with people who share the same values and the same practices has been incredible this year. And I really hope that continues. So.
Thank you. Susan Hurwitz.
So this might be slightly different, but I find myself loving to cry. And so I cry and I moan and I weep, and I make sure that I allow myself to remind myself how important that is. And then I started to tape record it. And then I started to tape record what I'm feeling and hearing as I'm crying, and cry along with it.
That is a very interesting practice. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you've discovered doing that?
I'm not sure if I have any intellectual framework of understanding it yet, but it feels incredibly powerful and it's brand new.
Thank you.
I'd just like to comment. Thank you so much, Susan. I mean, I just hear such a freshness in that, and such a, kind of a surprising a surprisingness in it that's really quite delightful. How interesting that you're kind of tinkering with it, like recording yourself. And but I'm also kind of envious that you can connect to your sadness in that way. You know, often for me, it's not so easy. And so that was one of my reactions of just like, oh, how marvelous that you can just kind of let that out in that way. So it's very inspiring. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Amber Klatt.
Hello from Canada, and thank
Hi.
you so much for the morning. I just need to respond to that also. I've been doing the same thing, but with anger as it comes up, and it's so interesting to discover. I think it came from a sense of wanting to almost practice therapy, but for myself, and then to listen back has just revealed some things to me. So thank you. I guess I'm not alone with that practice.
Is the open space of the pandemic supporting that in some ways? Because at least I've, a little less so now, but particularly early in the pandemic, there were just fewer activities, so more time to be. And at least I found that more time to be meant more time to actually connect to emotion rather than to a to-do list. Has that been an experience others have had? I'm seeing nods. Anybody, really, please feel free. We have plenty of room for blue hands. Barbara Gold.
Actually, Ron, I've had the opposite experience. I feel more beleaguered by the to-do list since it basically mostly is about things at home to do. But I wanted to put out another question. I think in many ways, there's a kind of intimacy with clients that you don't have in the office. But on the other hand, there is something different about it. So I'm not quite sure what it is that's missing on Zoom that we had in the office. Let's open that up.
Well, I've discovered different levels of this. I've discovered, for example, that some people who don't want to do Zoom but want to do the phone, that it's a little bit like the psychoanalytic paradigm of lying on the couch and not being seen face to face. And some people are better able to go inside to, in essence, close the eyes and see what am I feeling in a way that they wouldn't or couldn't. Face to face, which is just an association really to what you say, other people's associations.
Could I speak? I don't know how to raise my hand.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I immediately noticed the difference for working on Zoom from being in my office is that I'm not taking on the body energy of the clients. There's something, the physicality that I'm not taking on that I think, energetically taking on in the office. So I'm actually doing therapy, I think, very differently. I think it's probably more effective in a way because I think something about myself, my groundedness. I think I was taking on people's energy more than I needed to.
That's very interesting.
It's been interesting learning. Thank you.
Annette, were you going to comment on this?
Yeah, although I'm certainly ready to get back in person with both friends, family, and patients, I have been amazed at the really deep work that people have been able to do on Zoom. And I think there has been something about they're in the safety of their home. Maybe they've got a blanket, they've got their dog beside them. And it's really been amazing. And I tend to do more cognitive behavioral work, although I'm also psychodynamically trained, and people are asking for longer sessions. They want to meet more frequently, and they really want to do these deep dives. So that's just been amazing to me. And I think part of it is there's almost this cocooning that some people are doing, and they have the time. So, and then the other sort of silver lining, I have been in conferences all over the world that I could never attend, even this today, and I'm grateful for that. And this I don't want to stop. I mean, although I'm looking forward to going to conferences in person, being able to attend with people all over the world, all over the country, has really been a great joy and really helped to sustain me. So thank you for this today.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. And I know in my breakout room, we were honored to have one person from Indonesia and one from Vietnam who probably wouldn't have shown up if it was an IMP event here in Boston, so it was absolutely. Laura S.
Okay, so there have been many opportunities that have come through, and one of the big ones is learning how to say no and to work with on a whole other layer, and to work with the nuanced far enemy of compassion, which is control and fixing and rescue. Because I went into this with this deep dive. Oh, I'm going to grow spiritually in my meditation practice. I'm going to be able to help save the planet even more than ever. And of course, I crashed and burned fairly quickly with that one. One of the things about saying no and kind of honoring, my limitations as one person and one therapist is that every week there's so many referrals every day. And I work a lot with children, and I just feel my heart just aches, and I have nowhere to refer them to. None of my colleagues, nobody else is taking. So just that load of awareness of the suffering and the need is so big. I need to take it all, or even a small portion of it. So that led to despair, and then an opportunity to sit with that. And I've actually re-energized. Zoom has actually helped me re-energize through my body. And I'm doing a lot more movement with clients, like a lot of shaking and moving around and dancing and body breaks. And also my latest energizing practice with the nicer weather. One of my colleagues was doing dog walking therapy, and that was with her clients would walk their dogs while she was walking her dog. And I felt like that's a little bit too much multitasking for me, but what about walking with my clients? Well, I'm on a headset on the phone, and that's one of the advantages of telehealth is I've started to do that, and they love it, especially those, have a hard time getting out on their own. And I love it. It's so energizing. It's just such a win-win. And, I was saying to my smaller group, like, why ever go back to the office with this opportunity? So the other thing I want to say, someone mentioned a mindfulness-based support group for therapists. And that's one of the things I think we're also kind of swept away with trying to manage is like we're just starting to organize around support groups more for psychotherapists. And I just want to put that out that I'm interested if that could come out of this potentially. If there are others that are interested, I would be very interested in that. So thank you.
Thank you. As organizers, we'll have to think if there's some way that we could facilitate that. Karen Schench.
Yeah, thank you. I so appreciate everybody's stories. Thank you so much. I think the theme for me so far has been alone together. And I've only come to that recently because having been in both places, like back and forth, I work in palliative care and hospital and co-direct a palliative care service as well as oncology. So we don't really see people with hangnails, but with COVID, also on a surge team, teaching doctors how to give difficult information has been mind-bogglingly difficult. The incredible suffering, private practice closing down and doing Zoom from home. And most of my clients right now are physicians. That's been a big part of my practice over the years. But what I see is the suffering and then my own, in that. And I think someone said earlier, this is the silver lining is like, oh, I can attend stuff like I wouldn't be able to afford to go or the time. And when I did the Vallecito retreat as well that Ron was talking about, that was like the first time, oh, this is so relieving. So there's places of respite, and then there's lots of tension. And when I get into tension, I do this type A academic medicine thing about, oh my God, I need to know this. And then the hamster in the hamster wheel, there's 2 of them now, gets going. I need to do this research. Let's do it evidence-based, da, 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 da. You know, it's sort of putting that aside and just stopping the conversation has been my challenge, to just come into the body. It's been exciting to be with people like you all. Some people, I've heard their names for a long time, but San Francisco is really far away from Boston. And I'm on a social work salary and income is limited, especially now with practice. So it's hard to get to places. But all in all, I mean, I think the idea of settling now and coming back to body and stopping the conversation. So what arises is actually what is the attunement that I need to listen to. And it's considering what will serve from that point that I haven't done much of until recently. That's thanks to the IMP program as well that I've been in. But these are just free associations at this point. This first time I've really sort of talked about them much, because things are coming in so fast and furious and trying to cope. But to the point about phones, I think half of the physicians I'm seeing don't want to be on Zoom. So it took me back to like, oh my God, when I did trauma training, it wasn't called that. We were all supposed to do a stint in suicide prevention and active listening, and there was only phones. So it's like, oh yeah, I remember that, you know, back in 72, 73, the active listening, Truex and Kharkov, who started that stuff. It was amazing to go back and pick up those skill bases again, because I was fully tuned in my body to that voice on the phone. And so I've been playing with that a lot too, and realizing I need to get more in the body. Anyway, just some thoughts, but thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm aware that several people have mentioned the IMP program, really referring to our certificate program in mindfulness and psychotherapy. And Paul, if you were on the call, or if Caitlin can do this, to just put in the chat the link for that, anybody who's interested, because this wasn't a marketing idea, but I will take, there it is. I will take this opportunity that there's a chance to do this, and one can do it from all over the world as a sort of deep dive into mindfulness and psychotherapy. Maybe time for one more. Anybody else want to either share a self-care strategy or a challenge or a comment on anything else that we've heard? Just raise your little blue hand when you're ready, and think of it as an act of generosity to the community to let us experience our common therapeutic humanity.
I think Ava.
Oh, yes,
would you
thanks.
speak?
Yeah. No one's really mentioned this, but I mean, there has been a lot of silver lining in the online work. But one thing I do miss is seeing people's facial expressions live and their body, you know, how their bodies change in the session, and all that information that you get from sitting with someone. You know, I can see some of the facial expressions people have, but there's like a little slight difference when you're there together in person that I miss. So I just want to share that. I don't know if other people are experiencing that, but that's been something I missed.
And the experience of people saying, I want to come and meet in person, and sometimes, at least me as a therapist, feeling a little resistant to that, like not quite ready to do that. There's certain conveniences to the current circumstance. It's just showing up as M. Grumish 1.
That's me, Maria.
Hi, Maria.
Thank you. And thank you for this wonderful opportunity to be with everyone this morning. I'm in Arizona, so a little bit earlier than the East Coast, but I'm an East Coaster by birth and miss it terribly, even though people say I'm crazy. But I have been without a pet for a while since my relocation. So the pandemic encouraged me to rescue a little dog from Tijuana who has one eye and one leg shorter than all other 3. And that has forced me to get out of my chair. That has forced me to get outside. It has forced me to really appreciate life and just the connection.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you. And Charles?
Yes, hi, everyone. I've found the loving kindness meditation very helpful lately, and also my clients have too. It seems to resonate with them quite a bit, and the majority of my clients haven't really aren't really that familiar with it, so it's been pretty interesting to watch that, to see, you know, how they go from, you know, just being mindful of the breath and then into that, and then sort of back to the breath. So that's been useful to me and to my clients.
Thank you. I too have been very interested in kind of self-soothing practices during this period, including one which is very nice, very simple, which is, you know, the future may be uncertain, but here and now I'm safe.
Yeah,
which is, you know, just
powerful.
a very, very simple mantra that we can use. Pam Brigham.
So thank you all for this. This has been really wonderful. It's really nice to connect with people all over the world. I work in integrated behavioral health in a large health center, and I see people sometimes just one time or a couple of times, and people are coming very, very dysregulated. And one of the things that I used a lot during all of this, because I know I'm only going to have one or two opportunities, and there are very few people that are taking new clients. And so I have to kind of give them something to hold on to. So I'm sharing a lot of illustrations and things about mindfulness and around window of tolerance. But I'm also using Christopher Willard's 4 elements of stress management and giving people an opportunity to kind of do that with me, which has been really great, because then I get to do it myself as well. And it's something that they can kind of remember. I'm sorry?
Since everybody doesn't know Chris's, how Chris put this together, mention the 4 elements.
Sure, the 4 elements are earth, which is grounding and kind of being aware of your surroundings. Then there's air, which is taking, what I sort of say, this taking the surroundings and, you know, bringing them in. And, you know, well, first you're feeling the safety from your surroundings. And then, and it's because they're in their own homes, you know, usually they're in a place that they feel pretty safe, or their own cars, or wherever it is that I'm meeting with them. Then the air and bringing that kind of inward, and then water, where you produce some saliva and swallow it and watch it, kind of notice it going down. And then fire, which is sort of motivation. And then I do EMDR as well, and they've kind of modified it to kind of find a calm, safe place, and then use that as a, you know, once you've kind of integrated all of this, then you're, you know, calm, safe place, and then kind of have some energy to kind of move forward. And people have, you know, have really responded very positively to it, but it's also a really wonderful opportunity for me to do it with them. And so, you know, my practice on a regular basis, I get to, you know, that's one of the opportunities that I have to also kind of drop in.
Thank you. So we're getting near the end of our time. We were going to do a closing Mentimeter, and then Doug, hang in. I'll ask you to make your comments. But Caitlin, can you put up the closing Mentimeter? We thought we'd have an opportunity for everybody again to, in this way, you know, 3 self-care takeaways, maybe, you know, some way that you'll be able to take care of yourself. It's the same drill as before, to go to menti.com. And this time the code is 891387.7. And just share 3 takeaways, and we'll get to see them all coming up. And perhaps as that's happening, Doug, would you be okay sharing your thoughts as people begin to
Sure, love to.
Mentimeter?
Well, it's just been so interesting to hear the variety of experiences, and I'm certainly noticing one of the themes here that I also relate to is the kind of the surprising benefits of working with people online or virtually. And as Ron mentioned a couple of minutes ago, I too have found myself when some clients have asked, when might I be starting in-person meetings? I've noticed a kind of reluctance in me, like I'm not so sure that I want to. At the same time, I thought about a couple of other. It seems like we're a couple of other things. We're in the midst of really a kind of an improvisational experiment in psychotherapy of doing this work online. And just as when cell phones were introduced or email was introduced some time ago, who knows what the benefits and the kind of the unexpected problems of that may be. And one thing I've wondered about is, the loss of human connection, of being in the room together. That has always been such a visceral and central part of psychotherapy, of simply being in the room. And so I worry, I guess, a little bit about, will that be lost as we move to working virtually? And if we stay working virtually going forward, I just wonder about that. And yet I also, I'm noticing a number of paradoxes. I understand that in many ways there's been a kind of a leveling of the playing field, in a sense that, my clients now don't walk into my office. We each are on our home turf as we meet, and there's perhaps a kind of a leveling of things. And yet at the same time, I wonder, does that allow people to hide in some way? Does that allow me to hide in some way? Do we not really reveal ourselves as fully as we meet virtually? And I'm thinking of Sherry Turkle's work, the MIT thought leader and writer Sherry Turkle, who wrote a couple years ago the book In Praise of Conversation, of just what's being lost as we text and use social media. So complex and complicated,
Yeah.
it seems. Lots of pros and cons.
Thank you for those reflections. I think as we're going to wrap up and intend to end on time. I'm sorry there's not going to be time for everybody to share, but maybe we can take a moment and do just a couple of minute meditation together, just watching the Mentimeter and letting these words sink in. And to close this Mentimeter practice with the sound of the bell, just listen until it trails off and can no longer be heard. So maybe we'll close the Mentimeter. Caitlin, maybe we can send this Mentimeter to everybody along with Charles's talk. And I just want to thank everybody for coming. Thank all of the IMP board members for your contributions in organizing this and putting it together, and all of you for coming out on a Sunday morning, evening, Saturday, middle of the night, wherever it might be, wherever you are, for joining this little IMP community event. And maybe we can all, to say goodbye, unmute ourselves and wave and say goodbye to one another.
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good day. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Patient.
inspiring.
So helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Nice people.
Right. What a nice people.
Nobody wants to leave.
I'll try.
This was a beautiful opportunity. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Thanks for
Thank you. It's great.
Thank you all for being here.
Appreciate it.
You.
Thanks.
Thank you from Ireland. I really appreciated it.
For coming all the way from Ireland.
Amazing.
A cheaper flight, a cheaper way to be here.
Thank you, Caitlin, for all your backroom work that you've been doing.
Sure. Thank you
yeah,
all.
Caitlin.
Thank you all. Happy to be a part of it.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
You too.